It's not calling you Josh Frydenberg, it's calling you Dosh Frydenberg.
Under the coalition, taxes for hard-working Australians will always be lower.
You know, I don't hold a hose, mate, and I don't sit in control room.
They're answers that only can come from Victoria, I'm afraid, because that's not my job.
But I ain't spending any time, mate, because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person was torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
Well, g'day, listeners, and welcome once again to the Two Jacks. It's episode 131, recorded on the 21st of October 2025. And joining me, as usual, is Hong Kong Jack. G'day, mate. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
You want to kick it off here? There was a cargo plane at Hong Kong Airport that overran the... Was it taking off or was it landing?
I think it was landing, but it's overrun. It was meant to be taxiing, and they've taxied it into the drink, which is not recommended.
It's a Turkish cargo plane, I believe.
Some kind of cargo plane. I'm not sure which airline.
2 journalists were killed.
Yeah, well, I think 2 ground staff were killed. They were in a vehicle, and as the thing taxied into the water, it picked up their van or whatever they were in and took them into the water with it. So,
that's distinctly unpleasant. I believe that there were no signs of. Well, it seems to be a technical problem. They've pulled the black box out of the plane, and they'll find out exactly what took place.
If you were in the pilot's seat, you'd be hoping they find something technical wrong, because if you've it would be an expensive parking error. I mean, we've all made a parking error in our time, but
yeah, it's a little bit different when you just go for a bit of parallel parking and you miss the curb by a metre.
Yeah,
but this is a little bit more alarming than that. Well, we'll keep an eye on it and see what the analysis shows up. The big news, of course, today: Anthony Albanese and a large. Delegation from Australia met with Donald Trump and the Trump administration, and it seems to have gone very, very well, with the possible exception of in answer to a question from Andrew Clennell, the Sky News political editor. There was a little bit of a reminder that Australia's ambassador to the United States, Kevin Rudd, had said some rather rude things about Donald Trump. Enemy of the West and this sort of thing.
Village idiot got a run.
Village idiot, that's right. And Trump sort of turned to Albanese. You know about this? And Albo just laughed because there was nothing else to do. And then Trump turned around and he said, "I don't like you, and I probably never will." There was laughter all round. Penny Wong described it as a bit of a joke. And later, of course, Kevin Rudd did apologise in person. He did retract those tweets, but it took him a long time to do it. And he did apologise to the president in person, and President Trump told him all's forgiven.
I'd have been more impressed if after Trump said, "I don't like you and probably never will," if Albo had stepped up to the plate there and said, "We don't like him either. That's why we're sending him to Washington." You know?
That's what I sent a message to my editor about a column tomorrow, starting with that. Trump has discovered what the Labor caucus has known for many, many years.
Yeah. One of my American friends said, "Do you think this is the problem?" I said, "No. From most Australians concerned, Donald Trump's just joined a line that would stretch from DC to Chicago of the people who don't most like Kevin Rudd."
Well, there were some other moments too, Jack, where Donald Trump told Latika, Nine media journalist Latika Burke to be
former Nine journalist.
She's at the Nightly. That's right. Yeah, thank you for that. And told her to be quiet. And again, I sent a message to my editor, said, "Who'd have thought it'd be that easy? I mean, why didn't we do this earlier? Just tell her to be quiet." Yeah. And I think Michael Koziol from the SMH was told that he was a bad person, a nasty person for asking a second question.
He has got a very different approach to the conduct of press conferences, but it seems to work for him, so he's not going to change it.
Well, everyone's bending the knee to him from around the world, and Albo's no exception. But they did sort out a US $8.5 billion framework agreement around the supply of critical minerals, Jack. And that seems to have been a sort of stunning success between the two countries, and lots of chatter. Albo will go on to meet Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, and map out more of that. Albo said Australia is announcing today up to US $200 million in concessional equity finance for the project, which includes a right of offtake for the Australian government. The United States government is also making an equity investment with right of offtake. This is a project in Waggarup in Western Australia, and I think a manganese mine there, Jack.
And the plan is for these two to be the first of other projects as well. This is a big success, the mineral deal. And to be honest, he said before he's got to bend the knee when he goes there. And I know the Greens are making a huge fuss about this, that he was too deferential. But nobody sits.
What he's supposed to do is start throwing cut lunches around the table, or verbal cut lunches.
But it's sort of it's a failure to recognise reality, and that is that almost nobody sits down in the Oval Office as an equal, right? The Europeans don't. I suppose you could argue maybe Xi Jinping does.
Absolutely.
Maybe Modi does
these days, mate.
Yeah.
But no, really no one else.
No.
And that, as you say, that is the reality of it. After Donald Trump's, we'll get back to the rare minerals thing in a minute, but after Donald Trump's comments to Kevin Rudd, which were all sort of fairly jocular and what have you, Susan Ley and members of the coalition demanded Kevin Rudd resign. And again, you just think, why are you getting the politics on this wrong every time? Why would you say, well, we must defer? We must defer to some perceived slight from Donald Trump, who didn't seem to be slighted at all. But we should be sacking people because a leader of another country, albeit a military superpower, the US, why should we be bowing to them?
No, you do what I suggested Albo should do. Say, we've got him over there because we don't like him, but he's not bad at his job, so you're just going to have to put up with it.
He's not bad. Look, I believe he's been very close with Scott Bessent, working on the details of this particular deal. We mentioned the project in Waggarup. I presume I've got that correct. But there's also a second project identified, the Arafura Nolans project in the Northern Territory, with the Australian government unveiling US dollars, $100 million equity investment in it. This project, once operational, is estimated to produce 5% of global rare earth minerals, which are essential for energy security and defence. So I think I got a strong sense that not only did Kevin Rudd do his homework and get his relationships right with the key players like Scott Bessent, but Albo did too. And he was, as soon as he bounded off the plane, off the RAAF burner, he was raring to go, and knowing that this was going to solve a bit of a problem for the United States too, in terms of the Chinese are withholding rare earths, not just to the United States; they're basically stockpiling them. And this was a pretty good out for everybody.
Yeah, the US used to be the biggest producer of rare earths, of these minerals, and they kind of lost a battle with China because China controls their economy in a way that the US doesn't control their economy.
Right, and that's essentially because China holds, I think it's around $100 billion worth of US debt, or maybe more.
Yeah, and this is buying the US what they need, which is some time and some alternatives in the supply chain, and that's very valuable. And look, you'd have to call this visit a great success. It's better than most of them, right?
There've been a few people had to pick up off the floor in the Oval Office and dust them down.
Seriously, Kevin Rudd looked a bit crestfallen when it happened, and I don't think he's got much of a sense of humour, so he couldn't probably see the joke in it. But that's a small price to pay for a good visit.
Yeah. No mention of AUKUS, but one would expect that those conversations take place behind closed doors.
Yeah.
We're not going to be having public meetings around the three nation security measures and security parameters. So those talks will continue.
And the Brits weren't there, of course. So this is not the
you can't really do it. I mean, so I guess what I'm saying in a roundabout fashion is that the subs deal is still in the murk, you would say, and I'm not entirely sure. And the cynics around will confirm this that it might ever happen, but certainly the Albo's long-awaited meeting with Donald Trump has been a success, I think, for both parties, but certainly for Anthony Albanese. It was, in fact, a coalition attack, wasn't it? That why is this taking so long? Why is this taking so long? And now I suspect they don't have a lot of chance, other than the sort of Kevin Rudd business, to make political mileage out of it, Jack.
And everyone's going to laugh off the Kevin Rudd thing, right? Everyone except Kevin. He'll be at home calling people rat fuckers and all that sort of stuff all night, but everyone else is going to laugh it off.
He might have moderated over the journey, mate. Yeah. You don't know.
But really, I couldn't see the point of the Libs' attack on the fact that he hasn't.
It was my roundabout way to talk about some of the coalition's heavy hitters looking at the future of the party. A speech from James Patterson and an op-ed, I think, from Angus Taylor. They just get the politics wrong too often, and that was just a really knee-jerk reaction too. I mean, they must have seen everybody laughing. So what are we talking about there? Anyway, we must move on to this particular issue. James Patterson, who's probably, I would think, the intellectual head of the Parliamentary Party at the moment. He's got a million portfolios. Well, exaggerate, but he's got a few. And whenever they're shy of anyone stepping up to the media, James Patterson will come along and do a reasonable job.
Well, he's not going to make a goose of himself.
Yeah, he's pretty smart.
You can send him out there and know he's not going to make the situation worse.
He's good on his feet. And he delivered a speech. I'm not entirely sure what it was all there for, Jack. Some sort of coalition get together, Liberal Party get together. Can't remember now. But he and Angus have talked about the sort of reviving the broad church, and these are sensible things to suggest. Taking the party one way or the other was going to be a disaster. And when I say one way or the other, dragging it further to the right or putting it in a sort of Labor light centrist sort of category was always going to be a disaster. That seems unlikely because they've got far more conservatives in the party room than they do centrists, or moderates. But I just get the sense talk is cheap, Jack, because while all this is going on, Susan Lay's job is openly discussed as being temporary or tenuous at best.
Well, like everybody else who gets that job after losing an election, the job is tenuous at best. Most of them don't get to go to an election. None of them win. So that's where she is. I don't think she's terribly important in the whole proceedings. I think she's just got to hold the place together. It's people
I don't think she's
it's
doing
people like Taylor and
job.
Patterson who are the future, and they need to grab hold of the thing, and make sure that what's kept the Liberal Party a success for 75 years, which is that it's a kind of a marriage of convenience between classical liberals and conservatives. Continues. If they can forge that bond and keep that bond strong, it will survive.
Yeah. Now, Angus, is he on the back bench?
I think he is, isn't he?
Yeah, they've got a pretty loaded up back bench, which is always a bit ominous, Jack. But Look, he said, I just wanted to read his words. He said, as John Howard has long argued, our strength rests on a balance between two great traditions. The first is the classical liberal tradition, individual freedom, enterprise rewarded, and government as an enabler, not overlord, driving a resilient, growing economy. The second is the conservative tradition, family as a foundation of society, local institutions that hold communities together, and respect for the lessons of history. Lovely words, Jack, but the Liberal Party's problems are so deep now. I mean, again, I shouldn't have to point this out, but James Patterson and Angus Taylor are both blokes. They are on the nose with women in general. They are on the nose with women earning high incomes. They are on the nose with women who are university graduates. So that's their biggest problem for me, is that they have failed to create a platform for which at least one big group, one large demographic, 51% of the voting population, can feel comfortable with. I mean, this is a party who has stuck rigid to its core, to perhaps not even its core values. It has just stuck rigid while everything has changed around them. And they're only just beginning to learn this now. And we're talking about the demographics of the country. We're talking about gender. We're talking about these sorts of things. And they're just a long way from it.
Yeah, but none of that's unfixable.
Well, I don't know that it is. I think it may well be unfixable. Obviously, they have shunned the idea of I guess a sort of DEI approach to candidates.
They've always been
they've
opposed
upset.
to quotas. Right,
well, as George Brand has said, they have upset virtually every sector of the community, to a point where you just thought, well, they can't upset anybody anymore. So we've got migrants in this country. We've got people where English is not spoken as a first language in this country. The numbers on it are staggering. Rebuilding from there, I don't know that they can. Florid words just won't be enough. They need basically wholesale policy and platform changes.
Yeah, the first thing they've got to do is stop taking the wrong side of every political issue. This is a problem they share with the American Democrats. If the American Democrats see an 80-20 issue, they run head skelter for the 20% end of it, right?
We'll get to them in the US, but you're absolutely right.
And the Liberals in Australia do much the same thing, not as spectacularly as the Americans do, but they do that. So when you stop doing that, you stop annoying people all the time, right? And that gives you some space to actually develop some proper policies, and it also gives you a little bit of space and time. And you've got to take some space and time to get the right people in the right positions to do that. The people are still around. People like who was the minister when I worked for the tribunal? Philip Ruddock had a really terrifically close relationship with the migrant community in Australia when he was immigration minister. He was much derided in the Fairfax press, as was in those days. But he could walk into any of those migrant community functions and all that sort of stuff and get a round of applause and all that kind of stuff, and people really liked him. But so you need people who are going to go out there and do the time and do the work to do that sort of thing.
Well, and avoid the foot and mouth stuff.
Yes.
I mean, Jane Hume, in the middle of election campaign, starts talking about Chinese spies handing out for the Teals, or for Labor, I'm sorry, handing out for Labor. And you just go, what are you doing? Are you intent on alienating virtually every demographic group in the country? And this is their big problem. This is another little problem here, and a reflection of that larger problem, because Barnaby Joyce is believed he's announced that he will not recontest New England for the Nats, now for the National Party. Now, that doesn't mean he's not going to recontest. It means he's not going to recontest for the National Party, as I understand it. And, of course, he's been courted by One Nation without making a commitment one way or another at this stage.
What do you think his chances are of winning that without National Party endorsement?
I need to look at. I know he won. I know he won New England pretty comfortably, and has for a long time, and with the exception of time when there was Indies running around. Of course, when Tony Windsor held that seat, I'd need to have a look at the numbers. I would think pretty good.
But do you think he says, well, am I a chance in this, or will I become the One Nation senator for New South Wales?
That's a distinct possibility too. What I think the One Nation, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, is about is getting some seats in the lower house. And I think that's when they sort of start being taken seriously as an alternate party, and I think they're very keen to do that. They have been, and I know this for a fact, they have been looking at establishing branch structures in all New South Wales and Queensland branches. Electorates.
Yeah.
And so they're setting the administration up there.
Yeah.
Because they think it's their last tilt. I know you've always said, and I sort of tend to believe it, any political party with a name attached to it, a surname attached to it, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, is only as good as she is in politics. As long as she lasts in politics.
Which is, of course, self-limiting, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can rebrand, but it gets tricky. I mean, you can just call it One Nation and Pauline's not there and drag her out every election campaign to anoint people. But, yeah, I think this is their sort of rallying cry. I noticed there was a piece in the Australian, absolute garbage, to be honest, about the rise of the Libertarian Party in Victoria on the back of Jim's mowing, Jack, who's a...
I always I hope they had fun writing it.
No, it was absolutely terrible. Libertarians got 1.4% of the vote in the House of Reps.
Yeah, whereas Pauline's her party's got over 10 now, which is
in polling, they're generally 6-7.
Yeah, that's a significant
number. But they need to win seats in the lower house.
But although I would say that the Democrats were a power in Australian politics for quite a while without winning any lower house seats. I'm just kind of thinking of the personal choice for Barnaby. He's going to have to make up his mind. Does he try and get? Because I think he probably needs to be a parliamentarian. He has a young family to support. Plus, he probably got filleted in the divorce from the first wife.
Well, and richly deserved too.
Yes, yeah. I'm not. Yeah.
But look, I think you're right. I mean, what does a career politician like Barnaby Joyce do when he's had enough of politics? I mean, there's nothing really.
He can't go back to being the
knock a few op-eds out for the local Armidale paper, and that's about it.
Yeah, and there's not enough money in that these days.
No, there's not a lot of money in that. No. That's what we call an honorary sort of task. Yeah. It leads us to our next point. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on Barnaby, but it leads us to our next point.
I've got to say I quite like him. I
think he's the sort of bloke you could have a beer with.
Oh, absolutely.
I haven't had a beer with Barnaby Joyce, and I haven't had the opportunity to do that, but I think he's the sort of bloke I could have a beer with and enjoy his company. But I think once you got around about 8 or 9 schooners into him, it might be a bit of a problem then.
Yeah,
it might be actually very good from a journalistic point of view.
Yeah, well, these days I can't get anywhere near 8 or 9 schooners, so I'd have been tucked up in bed by the time he gets there.
I've got to get into training for that sort of thing too. But the next question is, and this will require a referendum, of course, Jack, is that the Parliament size, certainly the lower house, is 150. It actually went backwards. It was 151. I believe in 2019 to 2022, and now it's 150. So we got 150 seats with 120,000 people in each electorate, more or less.
Yeah.
I remember the days when it was 100, and I remember the days when it was 70. So basically, Special Minister of State Don Farrell, factional warlord from South Australia, and got the job because of that. He is looking at expanding the lower house, Jack. What are his numbers? What is he talking about? So
he hasn't put a number on it, and he's pointedly refused to do so. the I had a
People
look
are not going to love the idea of more politicians, are they?
No, that's going to be a hard sell
That's
in
a
my
hard
view.
sell, yeah.
I had a look. The average congressional seat in the United States is 700,000 now.
What, for the House? For the House? 700,000.
700,000.
Seems like a lot.
And the UK, by way of contrast, has kept theirs as ours used to be, about 70,000.
Yeah.
Now, I've got to say, I think 700,000 is too big. There's almost no chance that the people in your congressional district will feel that they know their local congressman or congresswoman. Whereas, and Australia's veering up to that level of about 170,000 being too big. It's been too big. But the really tricky bit with it is, I think it's Section 24 of the Constitution says, links the number of senators to the number of House of Reps seats we have.
Can I read that out, Jack? Or do you want to do it?
Yeah, I can read that. Yeah. The House of Reps shall be composed of members directly chosen by the people of the Commonwealth, and the number of such members shall be as nearly as practicable twice the number of senators.
Well, we do have the 76 or 150 at the moment. 76, isn't it?
Yeah. And of course, that means that not only are you increasing the number of House of Reps people, but you're supercharging the number of people in the Senate. And frankly, our Senate's bigger than the United States Senate.
And we do have our fair share of Fruit Loops, particularly on the cross benches there, Jack. I don't think I'd be supporting that if it was a referendum. So let's say we move from 150 multiplied by 70%, we go to about 180. You would have to have another 15 senators.
Yeah, and that's just
that's with my terrible maths.
And that's a recipe for trouble. Yeah.
No one's going to sign on for that. More freaks. So what needs to happen is basically, members directly chosen by the people of the Commonwealth. Full stop. That's where that referendum might go. So we take away the Senate numbers.
But of course, getting referenda up is really very difficult.
Not easy in this country, mate. No. The other relevant thing here is 28, which is every House of Representatives shall continue for 3 years from the first meeting of the House and no longer, but maybe sooner dissolved by the Governor-General. Part of this push is to have fixed 4-year, possibly 5-year terms. So the referendum, as I understand it, would be, let's have some more politicians. Let's keep them in power longer. And we're going to have to open up the human zoo that is the Senate and have a few more of them too.
Yeah.
I can't see that. I can't see it getting up.
No, nor can I. The Senate always reminds me, one of my close American friends from here, no longer living in the Territory, but he used to look around our local and another bar we used to go to, and he'd say, "Jack, what's this remind you of?" And I said, "Well, it's the pub, right?" He says, "No, this is the cantina scene in Star Wars. When they're looking around in Star Wars and all those weird individuals are sitting in pairs around. That's what the Australian senators like."
Perhaps not quite as much as it used to. They did have some reforms there on which were designed to prevent tactical preferencing.
Yeah.
And so, we had a bloke, the motoring enthusiast party. I mean, he actually did his job really well. He knew
he was quite good.
He knew he'd fallen ass backwards into the upper house, but he stuck to the task. And took it seriously.
He did what anyone sensible would do in that job. Okay, I've got a job. I'm going to do it. I don't know how to do it, but I'll work it out.
His name was
Ricky.
Ricky.
Yeah, he was the bloke from.
I used to call him Ricky Bobby. Yeah.
Yeah, he was from rural, from the Gippsland area,
Yeah,
I think.
Gippsland boy, yeah.
Yeah.
Right out the back, I think, sort of Orbost,
Yeah.
scary way.
Yeah, I think he was working for a
Banjos playing in the background.
yeah, he was working for a sawmill up in the
timber country,
up in the bush. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, look, I cannot see this getting up, and there is no value. I can guarantee you, Albo went through the Voice, lost a fair bit of skin over it, the Voice referendum, and if Don Farrell bounds into his office and says, "We've got a terrific idea. We want more politicians, we want more senators, and we want to leave them in power for longer." But it won't, Albo will be going, political capital. I'll have to waste a lot of political capital on this. No.
I think right about that point, Albo will press the magic button, and Don Farrell will be in the cellar. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Kevin Rudd and Don Farrell, his scraps with Farrell were the ones who basically cost him his job the first time around.
Yes.
Very, very powerful figure, commands a lot of votes in the caucus, does Don.
Yeah.
But I think he might be on a loser here. And that might be a deliberate thing too, Jack. Just showing the old hospital hand pass and see how you go with that. All right. I noticed your little headline here on our script. The John Elliott decisions and the Liam and Higgins cases. Linda Reynolds is now seeking to bankrupt both Brittany Higgins and her partner.
Not just that. She's now wanting a parliamentary.
Oh, that's right.
Inquiry.
She wants a parliamentary inquiry as well into how. I mean, you've been a bit outspoken about it, but sooner or later, Jack, the people of Australia are saying, "Can we please move on from this?"
Yeah. Well, so when you look at this whole disaster that has unfolded, Bruce Lemon got a walk on the rape case, right?
Yeah.
And what did he do? Instead of walking away saying,
for his hat. Yeah.
He went back for his hat, as the judge said, and sued everybody in town for defamation. Brittany Higgins gets a nice settlement from the Commonwealth, all that kind of stuff, has a small win over Linda Reynolds in a defamation action, and all she needs to do is to move to France or whatever she wants to do and to move on with her life. But no, she couldn't do that. She had to keep having a chop at Linda Reynolds all the time, and that was inevitably going to bring a defamation action, which she lost, right? And now Linda Reynolds has had her win, and she's not happy enough with that.
Popping back in for her hat.
He's popping back in for her hat. It's and of course the reason we call it the John Elliott.
Yes, we should explain it for our newer listeners.
Yeah, John Elliott was the head of Fosters and Elders IXL and all that kind of stuff. And John had a win in a case brought by the Australian Crime Commission, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was the NCAA back in the day.
Yeah, whatever it was.
They had the power to bring you into a room, no legal representation, and if you lied in that meeting, you could face charges along the lines of perjury, conspiracy.
Yes. Yeah, and John Elliott and a number of other people were
very prominent business people were all charged with pretty serious offences, and they came before who was it, Jack?
Frank Vincent, I think.
They came before the great Frank Vincent, who didn't like any of that stuff at all, any of this no legal representation, and threw it all out, pronounced it inadmissible.
Throughout 90% of the Crown case, which made the thing indefensible. And the rest of them mopped their brow and said, well,
better get on with life, better get on. Half of them ended up with Qantas.
Well, and the smartest one of them ended up a huge shareholder in Patrick Stevedoring and made an absolute mint.
Yeah, that's right.
But no, Johnny Elliott went back for his hat.
Damn it! I'm going to sue. Yeah, I'll sue these people. I'll sue the government. I'll sue the NCAA.
Yeah, and he went back and did that,
and got banged up. Got
banged up and lost all his money, and lost most of his credibility, all that kind of stuff. So there is a lesson.
I think it was
there is
you
a
came
lesson
up
there.
with it because I think not long after that he got divorced, and that his Wednesday nights were pretty much limited to watching his undies and socks go around in the local laundromat.
Well, I have seen that happen because we both lived in Carlton at the time.
That's rock bottom, isn't it? That is rock bottom. There's no coming back from that. Yeah. Well, again, we'll keep an eye on this. I'm getting very, very fatigued about all this, Jack, and I'm sure a lot of people are too. You know?
This is well and truly past time for people to say. The bankruptcy thing, that's just how the court proceedings will run now as they try and get the money for Reynolds. But I suspect most people in the community think, just get on with your lives, people. You know, this has gone badly for all of you. Just get on with the next thing in your life.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jack, we may not be happy with any of that, but we are very, very happy in Australia. We rank in the top 10 happiest nations on earth. Now, I didn't look at the scales. Bhutan on the top because it's supposed to be the happiest place on earth, Bhutan.
I did look at it, but I've forgotten who was where. It was just the usual. You know, there seems to be money in printing these lists and putting them on social media. You know,
well, there are all these. This is the globaleconomy.com, and I'll have a go at Finland. Look, it's just dominated by the Scandinavians. Bhutan doesn't get a mention.
Yeah.
Australia is in the top, just squeezed in. Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Israel. If you grocery shopping in Iceland, it wouldn't be cheap from what I've seen. Israel, Sweden, Netherlands, Norway, Luxembourg. You'd be lucky to live there. Australia, and I think Switzerland is 10, New Zealand 11, Bhutan. They just didn't take it into consideration, I don't think. And at the bottom, can we just have a quick look at the bottom here, Jack? Afghanistan, yes. Lebanon, Lesotho, yeah. Sierra Leone, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Malawi, terrible economic strife in Malawi. Zambia, Swahililand, Yemen, obviously. Tanzania, Ethiopia, Gaza, obviously not in it. But, so we are happy. I mean, we're told this. Are we really happy?
I don't know how they measure this stuff, to be quite honest. You know, I suspect they just kind of make this up as they go along and go to the pub.
What's the index? Well, it's a series of things, and we won't quite go into it, but obviously a lot of it's economics. A lot of it is food supply, consumption, these sorts of things, political system, government, those sorts of things. The average is 5.56 points. I won't even go into this because what does that mean? 5.56 points. That's the average of 138 countries. But Australia is well ahead of that at 7.06. We do seem to get these things, you know. I mean, if you watch the news service or in fact read the papers about what's going on in Melbourne, you'd think the place was, you know, Gaza City, but then when they get to these rankings, it's like people love it. People having a lovely time in Melbourne, and while I think of it. I did see some polling on the Monday, which we haven't covered in the show, but it's basically about 54-46 Labor's way. And in Melbourne, higher. Melbourne, higher. So, well, they're happy. They're happy with what they've got. Now, Jack, gotta love this. This will be a movie in only a couple of years. I'd say the Louvre has been struck with a number of what they saw, incalculable value of certain. Have you seen the tomfoolery, mate? You'd be popular if you bought that home, wouldn't
you? Which bit was this?
Well, the jewellery.
The jewellery.
Have you seen what was knocked off?
Yeah.
You'd be popular if you came home with that in a box.
Yeah, it's. I'm just
little
trying
gauche,
to think,
little over the top.
I'm just trying to think of an occasion where you could wear it.
Yeah. Well, this is the point. But I did see a necklace and
not even
sapphire,
the Hong Kong
sapphire about the size of your head, It's just monstrous.
Not even the Tai-Tais in Hong Kong would wear something quite as garish as that, and they give it a good Liberace push.
Well, it's just that we get into what are you going to do with these things now they've been stolen? Obviously, a very highly organised theft. They pulled up in a truck which elevated and allowed them to get to the second floor that they cut open with little mini chainsaws. Gas-powered chainsaws, disturbed a guard, knocked him out of the road, helped themselves to the tomfoolery, and off on mopeds or electric motorcycles.
There's already a great meme going around on social media of, I can't remember the name of the movie where the actor, they've drawn laser things right across the room and he has to sneak.
I know the one. What is it? Yeah.
Has to sneak under the room, right? And it's saying, and the line on the top is a heist as imagined by Hollywood, and then they've got a real life heist, and it's a bloke in a high vis a suit with a high vis jacket with a chainsaw, cutting his way into a into a glass case.
They have tried to put a value on it. Just the crown that was stolen. That's worth. I mean, the best estimate you can get is worth several tens of millions of euros.
Yeah,
that's the crown alone, and the crown, according to this valuer, Druitt auction house president Alexandra Giclo, and it's not, in my opinion, the most important items. There's a bit of gear. Total of 9 objects were targeted by the criminals, 8 of which were actually stolen. The thieves lost the 9th one, the crown of Napoleon III's wife, Empress Eugenie, during their escape. Dropped it. Can't go back. Got to keep going.
Yeah. Wouldn't you have to have a buyers for most of this stuff lined up? Because
that's what they say.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like knocking off a Picasso. You can't show it to anybody.
No.
You can't put the jewellery on and pop out for a steak dinner. You can't show anybody because you will get pinched. I mean, this is my point. Who are the people who are buying this kind of gear? And they're obviously very wealthy individuals, and I suspect that they had a buyer in place. In fact, excuse me, the buyer may well have instructed them to knock off those particular items.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it's I don't really get the point.
It is really you're basically taking something that is available to the public to be seen, and basically secreting it in a place that it can never be seen again.
Yeah.
My daughter suggested that it might be the Pink Panther gang. And believe it or not, named after, well, depending on who you listen to, the movie starring Peter Sellers, or in fact the
cartoon.
Well, no, there was actually a Pink Panther diamond, a big pink diamond. Whether it was a real thing or whether it was just the affectation of the film, but there is a Pink Panther gang, and like the movies, there are highly organised, very, very skilled thieves who'll do this job. I mean, these guys are not, the sort of guys that go on a smash and grab at a 7-Eleven. These guys are highly skilled thieves. Interesting. It will come to our screens very soon. First is a documentary. That's my tip. And then the movie starring George Clooney. Got to be in it.
Yeah, these people will be doing it to 7-Elevens if they keep whacking up the price of cigarettes.
Well, no, it's actually going the other way, Jack. You can set fire to them, but cigarettes are costing Australians around $12 a packet if you know where you can get it, if you know where to get them.
Yeah.
All right, across the channel, Princess.
I won't ask how much you're paying for yours.
All I can tell you is, Jack, that in my little township, there are 4 tobacconists. Yes, 4 tobacconists, and 3 of them are not legit. We should have a talk about it because at some point it's an utterly failed policy, and the worst part out of it now is there's no way out. There's really no way out.
Well, you've got a reverse policy to get out of it. I mean, it's just going to entrench organised crime.
Well, what they could do is cut the excise
Yes.
tomorrow, all of it,
Yeah.
and they still wouldn't be able to. It's $12 a pack. So it's got so bad that there is a factory in Iraq that is producing ciggies specifically for the Australian market.
Yeah.
And organised crime syndicates around the world are watching and going, I hope someone else is mad enough to do this, just crank up excise to the point where people have got to pay an arm and a leg for a packet of ciggies. Anyway, we won't get stuck into it because we've got to
doesn't it make you proud to be an Australian?
I just think it's capitalism, mate. That's what the market was highly inflated, full of tax, and along came some people who are probably not very nice people to fill that gap.
Well,
Anyway,
they
speaking
always
of not
will.
very nice people, Prince Andrew is no longer the Duke of York, mate.
Yes.
He's he and his God, she must have a shopping problem. I reckon she couldn't walk past Harrods without going there dropping $100,000 because she's in the stew as well.
The former
Fergie.
Duchess of York, yes.
Yeah, I just caught up with her significantly too. I did notice a photo there. I looked at, well, Jesus Christ. So no longer, all the royal titles are gone, and this is because they both lied about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And there is a possibility, Jack, of a police investigation in the UK which may lead to charges relating to historical child sex offences, which are no laughing matter.
Yeah, that would seem unlikely to me, just because there doesn't seem to be any. If there is any evidence, everybody's been hiding it that he was actually involved with, young girls under the age of 16.
Yeah, and of course, I sorry to interrupt, but you got Virginia Gifford's book, which has just been posthumously published.
Yeah. It's being released as we're speaking, I think, right? But there doesn't seem to be any evidence, at least so far, of that. He's certainly guilty of being a grub, and certainly guilty of being stupid, but they're not really offences under the law in the UK.
Yes, and he did
But
it all.
It's
he
long
did it
since
all without breaking a sweat, Jack.
Yeah, I think Sarah Vine, who writes in the Daily Mail, was talking about what he should be doing now, and she said, he should. This before he was stripped of the dukey, he should have been resigning this sort of stuff, doing a deal with his brother to move to a nice house on one of the remoter estates, and play a bit of golf at the local golf club. All that sort of stuff, and just get on with his life. I would add, and he probably should take up the drink so he have something else to do apart from marching up and down.
Doesn't sweat, doesn't drink.
Yeah.
Doesn't drink.
No, never has.
Didn't know that. The big problem.
Imagine being that foolish,
yeah,
and not being able to blame it on the source.
Exactly right. Had no excuses at all. What's alleged is pretty bloody serious. I mean, that's pedophilia and with Epstein providing or sex trafficking young girls for his use. The problem I think the Royals have, the House of Windsor has, is that they either have him in the tent pissing out or outside the tent creating even more problems.
Yeah, and that has been the long-term problem. But I think he's gone. I think he's burnt so many bridges now. He's going to have to look at that bit of advice from Sarah Vine and say, well, I'm 60-something years of age. How am I going to fill out the rest of my days?
He did sort of sidestep Charles over the estate he's living in. He lives in the Windsor estate. I can't think of the name of the place, but
the Royal Lodge, yeah.
The Royal Lodge. And he was able to secure a long-term lease, I think, before his mother passed away.
He did, yeah.
And so Charles was all hot to trot to have him evicted, and it did create a lovely image of the bailiffs knocking on on the door coming to collect the furniture, but I guess that won't happen now.
But he's another reminder of there are some times when you just say, well, that part of my life's gone. I'm just going to, pack up my boxes and move on to something different and live the rest of my life as well as I can.
Bit of a boost for Republicans too, because, the monarchy can throw up some very fine people, Queen Elizabeth II being a very good example, and then it can throw up some absolute rubbish on the same branch of the family tree. I mean, if we look at Elizabeth's uncle, Edward VII, Edward VIII, Edward VII, Edward VIII, the abdicator. Eighth, yeah, thank you. Just a terrible piece of work, just awful. And his brother, who wasn't supposed to be king, became a very useful monarch, So, yes, I guess it's just that way with monarchies, families. I don't know anything about this. Jack Corbyn has launched his what's called Your Party.
Yeah.
That's some branding issues there, don't you? It's not yours, Jeremy?
With what's it called? What's her name? Zia Sultana. They launched it together, and I watched a good bit of the video of the launch meeting. Big crowd, all that kind of stuff. I have never seen an older and whiter crowd I haven't seen a whiter crowd at a political rally in the UK for 30 or 40 years.
All old Marxists and Stalinists from way back, Jack.
Exactly right. Yeah.
All righty.
A lot of balding with grey ponytails.
I love the bloke who was his chief of staff. He put together, I think it was called the Stalin Society.
Seamus Milne.
Yeah, that's him. Because they thought that Stalin had been handed a bad rap by history, and it was their job. Yeah. It was their job to sort of rectify it. Never mind the millions of people you've starved or killed. What about the housing policy? Isn't that terrific?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. It really was. It was as dumb as that.
I'm testing my memory here, but my recollection is that Seamus Milne came from a quite well-to-do family, which most of these people do.
Yeah, that's right.
They are trustafarians, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And had a quite gilded life, but that's what gets them. But you got to say, Stalin, he wasn't even portrayed nicely in that movie.
That's right. Well, a little bit of trivia here for you, folks. All of the photos that you will see of Stalin are doctored. He had terrible skin. You see some of the photos of him as a young man, and I've seen women go, "Oh, he's a good-looking young rooster," but all of the photos of him were doctored because he suffered very, very poor skin and particularly acne. So he had these sort of pock marks all over his face that lasted a lifetime. But you never saw that if you're living in the Soviet Union.
That's the photos that weren't doctored by having people taken out of them later.
People that disappeared. Yeah. Oh, terrific housing policy. May have been a mass murderer, but gee whiz, that housing policy. All righty. In Portugal, Jack, lovely part of the world. Don't know if you've been. I haven't, and I'm desperate to go. I'm thinking I might go there next year. But the Portuguese Parliament has approved a bill banning face veils worn for gender or religious reasons in public. We're looking at a bit of this going on in Europe at the moment, aren't we? The bill is subject to review by the elected president, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, who resigned from the SDC, the sort of left-wing party that he had been a member of for a very, very long time, but is, I guess, cut of that cloth. So there's every chance he'll knock it over. I don't know, Jack, how we go in post-pandemic issues like this when everyone was wearing masks for health purposes, sometimes just for a bit of security, sometimes just because people had fairly serious health issues themselves and wanted to be as cautious as they could be. So I don't know. Why do we distinguish between someone wearing a surgical mask and someone wearing a niqab?
Yeah,
TJ,
I don't know.
Nick.
And I'm not, as you know, not much for one for banning things. But the French have tried this for, I don't know, 15 years without
Still on the
much
books.
success.
I don't think they hand out a fine, and this is what's happened. I should explain for our listeners: fines for those wearing face veils for gender or religious reasons in public range between €200 and €4,000. I think that's bigger than the French one, mate.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
That's an egregious wearing of a veil.
yeah. The only exception I would make is if people are protesting or rioting in the streets, I would enforce a no masks rule. I would support a no masks ruling in that.
Maybe rip off the mask from a few ICE agents as well, Jack.
Yeah.
No, I don't like that at all.
I think if people are going to, I'm quite happy to have people protest, but you've got to have the courage of your convictions and show us who you are.
All right. Very quickly, Gaza and Israel, Hamas showing the world what they're capable of. And the IDF has launched attacks into Gaza. Are we looking at a false dawn here, Jack, or is the ceasefire going to hold?
Yeah, a bit hard to tell, really, isn't it? A lot will depend upon, as it always has, right through this, on what the other Arab nations are prepared to do. Because at the moment, the arrangement or the expected arrangement is that they will supervise, if you like, the reconstruction of Gaza, and I suspect that they will want to make the sidelining of Hamas a condition of doing that. So that would depend how that plays out.
And of course, Hamas don't have the bargaining chips anymore.
No, they have
really no. I mean, they've got nothing. They've got nothing to negotiate with anymore.
No Hezbollah, no Iran, no Houthis,
Exactly.
and no friends through the Arab world, really. So.
All right, Russia and Ukraine, and this is from The Economist, Jack. Good stuff, actually. Despite relentless attacks and huge losses, this is reading from The Economist, Russian forces have achieved no major objectives in their summer campaign against Ukraine. Data analysis suggests that Vladimir Putin will struggle to win on the battlefield. Good piece and highly recommended. The one thing about The Economist, Jack, is it's a really expensive sub. And I keep looking at it going, I'd love to read that article, but I'm not paying you what is essentially about $600 up front.
Yeah.
It's a bit much. And of course, they are given to a bit of wordiness, shall we say. The philosophy there seems to be write me 10,000 words when 1,000 would do.
Yeah.
But it's quite a good analysis. It's well worth reading if you can afford the sub or get it some other way.
Yeah, I always wait until it appears outside the paywall. But essentially, what the piece seems to be saying is that there's kind of two arguments going on at once. Either Russia is genuinely a threat to Western Europe, or it's not. And the measure of whether it's not is if it can't even make any progress against Ukraine, it's perhaps not the threat that everyone else says it is. Right?
Well, it's got nuclear arms. It's got ballistic missiles. It's got hypersonic missiles. So it has got a significant military arsenal, but its economy is basically not much bigger than Australia's. I forget the actual figures on their GDP, but it's not bigger than Australia. It's about the same as Italy, right?
It is in the same category as Australia. That's correct. Yeah.
One thing, Jack, just very quickly, there has been some talk about the US providing Tomahawk cruise missiles to the Ukrainians. I guess there will be some restrictions on that, but they will be encouraged to, as the Russians have done, hit infrastructure, power stations, those sorts of things.
Yep.
I did read some analysis on that, and it started off by saying the Russians would be quite fearful of the fact that US Tomahawk cruise missiles were in the hands of Ukrainians. But then the article went on to say that there aren't a lot of surplus US Tomahawk cruise missiles around anyway. I think that the US arsenal only has about 4,000, which sounds like a lot, but they'll want the lion's share of those. And what might happen is that Ukrainians might be given a few hundred. But most Tomahawk cruise missiles are fired from sea. Obviously, the Ukrainians would not be able to do that, but they can be launched by land with a bit of finagling, if you like, a bit of a launching pad created.
A bit of kit. Personally, I can never forget seeing the Tomahawk missiles back in the Gulf War.
Gulf War One. That's when they first came out.
Yeah, when the little camera was riding down the streets in Baghdad, and we were getting a bird's eye view as it happened, and they were disappearing down lift shafts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, lethal targeting, uses GPS to find and hit its target. It's not a bunker bomb. It's not going to go through reinforced concrete, but it's going to basically, well, if you see one heading your way, they're not hypersonic, by the way, so you will have time to bend over and kiss your ass goodbye.
It's not going to go through reinforced concrete, but it can find a door.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we'll see if the Americans come up with that. We do notice that Donald Trump said, "I think you'll lose." He said, "You may not lose, but I think you will." I think that was in discussions with Zelensky today.
The other thing that the Economist pointed out was that for all that the Russian military seems decrepit, rusty, and their tactics aren't much good.
Second World War issue, and
but they just keep on coming. There's no they don't seem to have a shortage of people who they're prepared to throw at the front line. So
they had North Koreans.
Yeah,
who were they throwing into battle more recently? And that tells you, of course, that they are running out, not just of fighting soldiers, but they are running out of labour to run their economy. That's another big part of the problem. Particularly the energy-based economy is just struggling to find workers.
Yeah.
All right, over in the United States, the No Kings rallies, Jack, 2,600 rallies. I'm not sure if that includes the European ones. With, according to the organisers, 7 million people marching in the United States.
Yeah, big crowd, certainly. Yep.
Big crowd. Data journalist G. Elliott Morris concluded that the likeliest number, it's always dodgy, all this crowd number stuff. We did have some of the anti-immigration rallies here on the weekend, and I saw in media reports, this quite substantial variation on what was on average about 5,000 people. Someone said 3, someone said 7, that sort of stuff. So even in small numbers, it seems to be hard to figure out. But data journalist G. Elliott Morris, who I've never heard of before, but was quoted in the Atlantic, has concluded that the likeliest number was closer to 4.4 million at a minimum, which, according to his counts of other mass protests, would make it the largest single-day protest in the United States since 1970. Significant, Jack.
Yeah, well, we have the same problem with numbers here, or we had the same problem with numbers here during the pro-democracy demonstrations. Everybody had a view on how big they were. After a certain number, I don't think after a certain size, I don't think the number matters that much, right? It's just big.
It's just big. The Guardian went out of its way to talk about, have you heard this, the 3.5% rule? No. And the 3.5% is if you have 3.5% of your population out on the streets, that is likely that is likely, particularly in a totalitarian regime, that is likely that you will have regime change. Now, I'm not sure where this all comes from, but I thought it was a lovely piece of optimism on the Guardian's part.
Yeah.
What did strike you?
Certainly the crowds that turned out. I mean, this is, I think, series of rallies number 8 or 10 or something since Trump's been re-elected.
Well, this is the second No Kings. This is the second.
And they haven't shifted the political needle at all, really.
Well, we're going to go through some of his numbers pretty soon. I think there's lots of things going on with this kind of move, right? And there was a really good piece in the Atlantic going on about this. Firstly, it tells the sort of people like Peter Thiel and other of these sort of tech billionaires, hey, don't forget we're the consumers, right? So don't just ride roughshod all over us. It also tells people that may have voted for Trump, provided these are non-violent rallies, come along and have some fun. Come along and join us. Come along and have some fun. Let's build up the numbers. The other thing that really struck me, and this is not in the Atlantic piece, was that I did see some vox pops of some of the larger rallies. I think one in Boston and one elsewhere that I can't remember the location. And people were asked what they thought of the Democrat Party, and they all, to a man or woman, went lost, hopeless. So, it would have given the Democrats no succor whatsoever.
Yeah, and their numbers aren't too bad for a party that's completely lost its way, which it's a bit like the Liberals in Australia. I think this is fixable for them. If the Democrats in the United States just stopped being so dumb, they would be right back in the game, and that applies to Liberals in Australia too. Well, just put one foot in front of the other and don't make a goose of yourself.
I think there are major structural problems that challenging democracy in the United States. I mean, basically, the Republicans and the Dems have gamed the system going back to 1992, when you had Ross Perot running as an independent candidate. He got nearly 20% of the vote. Now, as we saw with Kennedy Jr., not that I'm a fan of his, he will not get, either by Democrat decree or GOP decree, he will not appear on a ballot in all 50 states. He's going to be lucky to get half. That sort of inculcates this duopoly. That's the first thing. The second thing is you've got local and state officials setting essentially the electoral map. And so you have a gerrymander. And so, again, it's practiced by both parties, both sides. It's not just the Republicans. Trump is obviously he's not for keeping it quiet, but all of them do it. And again, the one vote, one value system in the one vote, one value principle is not apparent in the system. And the third one was just want to finish this. Just want to finish this. And the third one is the SCOTUS, which essentially said that any group or individual can provide their money essentially without any barriers, which is, again, sort of inculcated the wealthy around PACs to again make politics, like horse racing or sailing, a rich person's game. Like the big beautiful bill, it had support about 38%. Now it's down to about 31%, but they don't care because essentially the people who are expressing that 60-odd% disapproval don't count. Some of them don't vote, and even if they did, it won't matter.
No. Speaking of the gerrymander, there's a wonderfully entertaining battle going on in California, where I think Gavin Newsom's all for the gerrymander and Trump's all against the gerrymander. But if you flip that across the other side of the country, the positions are reversed. Yes, yeah.
Look, don't think the Democrats are some sort of pure divine party because they're not Donald Trump. They are in the business of abusing democracy. Just want to have a look at this, Jack. So, and perhaps we won't want to spend too much time on it, but this is an Associated Press poll released yesterday. Yeah. Some 47% of US adults are not very or not at all confident they could find a good job if they wanted to, an increase from 37% when the question was last asked in October 2023. Electricity bills are a major source of stress for 36% of US adults at a time when the expected build out of data centres for artificial intelligence could further tax the power grid. The poll found that 36% of US adults approve of how Trump is handling the economy, a figure that has held steady this year after he imposed tariffs that caused broad economic uncertainty. So 36% approve the way he's running the economy. At roughly the same point in Biden's term in October 2021, an AP Norc poll found that 41% of US adults approved of how he was handling the economy, including about 73% of Democrats.
So just imagine how well the Democrats are going if they stop jumping on the 20% of issues. You know,
jobs. Right?
At the moment,
don't make me come down there, you idiots. Jobs. Cost of living.
Yeah, at the moment, every time they see any issue on which Trump's got a position, they rush to the other side, no matter how unpopular they're going to be. They are addicted to setting fire to their own hair. If they stop doing that, they're right back in the game.
Maybe. Even though 36% see electricity as a major concern, there are some who have yet to feel a serious financial squeeze. In the survey, 40% identified electricity costs as a minor stress, while 23% said their utility bills are not a source of stress. Some 68% of US adults describe the US economy these days as poor, while 32% say it's good. That's largely consistent with assessments of the economy over the past year. I was just looking for some stuff on in the survey, 47% say either they are not very or not at all confident they could pay an unexpected medical expense, nearly half. And I was looking for some cost of living stuff around groceries, and it's just disappeared. 54% of US adults say that the cost of groceries is a major source of stress in their life right now. Jobs.
The labour
cost
market,
of living.
The labour market seems to have moved into a no hire, no fire status. It's relatively stable, but there's no turnover. That is, people aren't firing people, but they're not hiring people.
The jobs growth. And again, we get to the ICE stuff, Jack. You know, it's an attack on the US labour market at the top level and at the bottom level. And the bottom level being agricultural work, hospitality work. The top level are the Koreans. If we remember the Koreans in Georgia who were
car manufacturers,
and those people now, they could apply for a visa, skilled immigration, Jack, and pay $211, I think it was US. But now they're required to pay $100,000. So that's going to cause a problem. So they're going to have a major labour market squeeze with some of these disastrous policies. And that's what I think they are going to have some big problems around inflation, and they're going to have some big problems around their labour market. All righty. We'll just pass on this. We got so much sport, Jack. We don't know what to do.
Let's go on to the sport.
You've got something in there from Jacques Callis, Jack.
Well, he turned 50 the other day, and you know his record's better than I think it.
Ricky Ponting reckons he's the best cricketer he played against.
Yes, yeah, and you look at the numbers.
Best cricketer of his era, bat, bowl, everything.
And you look at the numbers, and it kind of supports that, right? And this particular thing caught my eye. You'll remember this in Johannesburg, the one-day international.
I remember watching the game, yeah.
Yeah, Australia scored 434, and they went back into the rooms, and a normally silent voice popped up. I reckon they're about 15 short, and this was Jacques Callis.
Well, I remember the first day, I reckon about 24 came off. You might remember, I think it was Mick Lewis bowled in that game too, and he had sort of none for 110 or something like that. He jokes about it now. Did I say Mick Lewis? Yes, I played against his brother, Billy. And, so happy birthday to Jacques Callis. It would have been anyway, Bob Holland's birthday, but he passed away, I think, about 10 years ago.
Jacques wasn't the most exciting cricketer to watch. The runs didn't rattle off the bat, at a rapid rate. He was no Adam Gilchrist, and his bowling was steady, but he just kept plugging away and doing it. I thought
he's a better bowler than a bat, but he had the ability to bowl fast when it was needed, and be that guy who could just go bang, short pitch bowling. and get blokes out that way. He's a terrific bowler, and he could swing the ball too. So nice new cherry in his hand. He'd do some damage. Women's World Cup, Jack. ICC Women's World Cup in India. 4th spot is up for grabs, with each team in the competition having 3 games to go. Australia on top. They play second place England on Wednesday evening, our time. And that will be the match of the tournament so far. England are second, as I said. India play New Zealand the following night. And South Africa are third, India are fourth, New Zealand fifth. And New Zealand look like they're coming back a little bit. So that India v New Zealand game will pretty much determine who will play in the semi-finals. Australia v India in the first of the ODIs, Jack. Comfortable win to Australia in a rain-affected game. I think it was 26 overs aside. What's going on in Perth, Jack? Apparently they've had the wettest year in a long, long time. I remember watching some of the footy and you go, what? It doesn't rain in Perth? And it was just sheets of the stuff.
Yeah, I saw a couple of games like that.
Hopefully it won't affect the Ashes in not so long from now. But a comfortable win.
The West Coast Eagles will be blaming the weather next.
They'll need draft concessions if that rain doesn't stop. Mitchell Marsh is just a terrific captain. That's the first thing. He played a beautiful innings. Started off slow. The wicket wasn't conducive to white ball cricket, and the Indians did struggle. And Mitch decided just to hang tough for a little while, and then he started just spanking balls out of the park. He hits a ball so powerfully on the offside. It's just incredible. So well done to Mitch Marsh. Quick coverage of the Sheffield Shield, Jack. Vicks out of the blocks early with 2 outright wins, are on top. New South Wales, they beat New South Wales and last year's winner, South Australia, and they lead Queensland, Tasmania, New South Wales, South Australia, the winners last year. It's currently languishing 5th, very early days, of course, and WA on the bottom. If I was going to pick a wooden spooner, I'd be New South Wales. But anyway,
did we have a spirit of cricket stumping in the Sheffield Shield this week?
I didn't see that. No.
I'll see if I can find it for you.
What I did want to say is that Marnus Labuschagne clearly is the leading run scorer in the Sheffield Shield competition. I think it's 300s in the Shield and one in a one-day game out of 5 knocks. Jake Weatherall, Jack, second. And there's a lovely piece written by Gideon Hay on his Cricket at L website. And we'll just go through that. I have a feeling Jake Weatherall might be a bit of a smoky to play in the first test. He's concentrated on his red ball cricket. He's a very powerful hitter and has played a lot of white ball cricket for the Hobart Hurricanes and others. But he really concentrated on his red ball cricket last year. Averaged 50 in the Shield, and look, he's motoring along nicely. I have seen Usman Khawaja bat, and I'm just a long way to convinced that he's not a little bit too long in the tooth for it. But anyway, just with the bowlers.
In any event, you need someone to contrast with Usman. Usman is a nudger, you know.
And Marnus has been scoring his runs quickly. I mean, he looked awful against South Africa and England during the year, but he has been scoring his runs quite quickly. Just in the leading wicket takers, Matthew Kelly from Western Australia has 16. Liam Hatcher has 12. He's a bright red-headed young bowler for New South Wales, Jack. Looks like he's got a bit of promise about him. And Mitch Stepson has taken 12 for Queensland, thrown him out of the back of the hand. Scotty Boland with 11 wickets. Bowled Victoria to victory, taking the last 5 wickets against was it South Australia? I think it was. And so now to the Ashes, Jack. Cummins is all but certain to miss, and that means Scott Boland will come in, you'd imagine, from the bowling side of it.
Certainly it seems that Cummins will miss the first 2.
Yeah, I think we can certainly pen in the 1 and pencil in 2, and that's a concern. But I think Scott Boland's a bit of a, I think he's a very good replacement. And he bowling beautiful lines as he always is. I watched a fair bit of him playing against South Australia. And Jack, we've seen a lot of cricket from the Wacker over the years, you and I, and now at
Optus.
At Optus.
Yeah.
What happens a lot is that quicks will come into this country, and if the first test is played in Perth, they'll bowl too short. They just won't get their lengths right.
That has always happened.
Yeah. So that it's just something to keep in mind. And I just wanted to read this, Jack. It's very sort of smart stuff from the wonderful Gideon Hay. I'm a subscriber to Cricket at Al and do recommend you doing so. I forget, I think it might be about $15 or $20 a month just to read Gideon's stuff, and Peter Lola and a few other guest writers. It's well worthwhile. But he's talking about late blooming careers now, particularly as batsmen. And he says, and he's talking about Jake Weatherald being a smoky selection at age 31, or just about to turn 31. The West Australian Trinity, he reminds us of Mike Hussey, Chris Rogers, and Adam Voge. We might remember Adam Voge. Still got the average in the high 60s, hasn't he, for over 1,000 test runs. But look at it all. Matthew Renshaw is 29, Curtis Patterson 32, Cameron Bancroft pushing 33, Marcus Harris and Nick Madison are already 33. Harris's colleague Peter Hanscom, who's probably the best batsman in Australia at the Shield level, is 34. South Australia have the trio of Henry Hunt at 28 and 26-year-old Nathan McSweeney and Jason Sanger, who is a younger man. But while we remain obsessed with young guns and cast envious eyes on India's teenage tyros, there is then quite a drop away to the prodigies, Constas at 20 and 22-year-old Kellaway and Connolly, both 22. So it seems like our batsmen are getting older. And our bowlers may be a bit too. 3 years ago, Gideon points out, cricket.com.au identified 25 players under 25 as future elite talent. Only two, Cameron Green and Todd Murphy, the Victorian spinner, have played Test cricket since. So there you go. Not a young kid's game.
Well, part of that is that as there's more money in the game, people can stay in the game longer, and they've got more time to develop their skills. You know,
I think also the Sheffield Shield is such a good competition that you'll find that prodigies will, in their second or third seasons, might struggle.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you need to really build up a bank of runs and a means of getting avoiding sort of technical deficiencies. So, we're very, very lucky that we do have the Shield competition being as strong as it is. All right, over to AFL, Jack. Trade week. What have we learned?
Well, I was just looking at, we were talking the other week about, might have been last week, about clubs who struggle to get players to come to them.
Yeah.
And you were saying that there's a kind of a two-tier system, if you like, of the clubs that have been successful over the last little bit.
Well, the word was North and Essendon are struggling to get anyone, to attract anyone to come to their clubs.
Yeah. So I was jotting down the reasons why players leave and why they go to a club, right? And you, because you look at, say, Brisbane. Just a few years ago, they struggled to keep anybody and struggled to attract anybody because they had a big go-home factor. Players would go up there, they'd get drafted up there, then they'd do
Suns.
The Gold Coast Suns had that. How many really good players went through the Gold Coast Suns? Tom Lynch at Richmond, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's sort of chasing a premiership. Sometimes it's opportunity to play in the finals. But I was just jotting through some notes of who'd left. But sometimes it's a chance to play a role that they can't play in their current team, and they're prepared to go to.
Very often they'll be told, "Well, we're not going to play you in the midfield. You'll have to battle for a halfback position or something like that."
So Georgie Hewitt would leave the Swans and go to Carlton because he was probably going to be behind Warner, Goulden, Heaney in the middle, so he wasn't going to get much midfield time. And he figured, well, if I go and play that, Jordan Dawson, same thing, bit of go home fame. Go home factor, but also
I thought he was a huge loss for Sydney when he went, and he was always going to go. Yeah,
but he was only playing on the back flank really in Sydney. Yeah,
couldn't get a Guernsey, and he just every time I saw him went, oh, this guy's good.
Yeah, he's really good. So,
but look, there are other things, Jack. Charlie Curnow, it's just being reported now that Curnow's actually spoken to other players in the club at the Carlton Footy Club saying, I'm not happy and I want to leave. That was not 2 weeks ago. That was 12 weeks ago. And I just don't understand how you do that and get away with it, other than to say there must be some problems that Carlton were unaware of, hearing a little whisper here and there that there's a kind of couple of factions, which would be terrible. But if you're the
couple of factions amongst the players, you mean?
Yeah, sort of. Well, what's been intimated, and I have no idea, right? I have no idea. But what's been intimated is that there's Voss and Cripps. That's one significant faction, and if you don't fit into that, you're in trouble.
Okay.
Now,
at
the same time for morale, if you're in a leadership group and you are their gun full forward, you're going around telling blokes, I don't think I want to play next year. I don't know what that does to the morale of the club in that season.
Not much. Not much good.
Very much at all. It might explain a fair bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they sort those problems out. If indeed, where I got that from was Dr. Turf talking on a podcast. So, again, it's he made it clear too. It was sort of second-hand information. Maybe true, maybe not. But what is true is that is being reported now. The Curnow was keen to leave and expressed that view to other players halfway during the season. And I find that pretty odd. Who do you think won that, Jack? I suppose it all comes down to what happens in the future. Curnow to Sydney and Carlton.
Carlton. Sydney will be betting they can get this very, very talented player back to playing his best footy, which he hasn't for a couple of years, right? And that's partly injuries, partly attitude, partly form, I think.
Probably.
And Carlton will be betting, well, we've loaded up with trade opportunities, and we're going to get the sons of the young players, and we think we can turn those opportunities into a better team. So it really depends how it pans out. And I was talking to a mate from Melbourne about this, and he says, you look at the choice people make, right? And he was talking about why people choose a club. And he says, look at Nathan Buckley. He left the Bears.
But he was always going to.
Yeah. He that was the deal. He said, I'll come to you for 2 years, but I've got to be free to go, right? So he leaves the Bears. They turn into the Lions, and they win 3 premierships during Bucks' career. Two of them against
Nathan Buckley as captain of Collingwood.
So after he's left the Bears, as he's leaving the Bears, he does a deal with North, right? That is everything but signed, all agreed. He's met Wayne Carey, he's met the coach, all that sort of stuff. It's all agreed. He changes his mind and says no to North. They win 2 premierships during Bucks' time as a player. Could have won 3 if they had him, I would have thought. So he misses.
I think that's a really rare one. I think that's obviously a rare one. You do see so many of them walk straight into premiership sides.
Yeah, but he's left 5 premierships on the table, if you like, or 5 chances. But he's got to play with Collingwood, who is still the biggest club in the whole thing.
Yeah, got to coach them.
Yeah, and you get exposure. He gets to play in all those big games for Collingwood, and if you make a success at Collingwood, you are guaranteed for a post-career career, if you like. You know?
Well, he's got a career now, Jack. He's resigned from the media, and he's going to be an assistant coach at Geelong.
Partly resigned from the media. He says he's going to do. I think he's doing it on the couch.
Okay.
On the couch still.
Going to keep doing that. I saw Gary Lyon talk about this, and he said, "I think this could be a brand new opening up. So media personalities will end up in AFL clubs, and I thought to myself, you wish, Gary.
Yeah,
Kind of wish, mate. All right, moving on. Rugby 360, is it going to be a thing? I was talking to a person who knows their stuff about this, and they reckon this is not going to work, because the NRL have said, Volandis has said,
life,
you sign up for this, see you later. Ain't coming back.
Yeah,
lifetime ban, essentially, 10-year ban.
I think the European leagues have said 10 years, which is the same thing. That's life, really.
Yeah, that's right. I wondered. I was talking to this fellow about the restraint of trade element, and they say there's absolutely no prospect of that giving Rugby 360 any kind of chance.
No. It just doesn't seem to have enough legs to get going. To get up and going.
No, I can see this dying. We'll see in the coming weeks and what have you. Meanwhile, we are right in the heart of Spring Racing Carnival, Jack. Caulfield Cup. Now, we have, for those who've been paying attention, I've been tipping half yours. I tipped it last week for rather sentimental reasons, it must be said. The one of the owners, or he's got 10% of the horse, is Paul Farley, a wonderful human being from Warrnambool, and I was delighted to see someone. His mate sent me a photo of him holding up the Caulfield Cup. He's had some pretty hard times in his life, as Paul, and it's just lovely to see good things happening to good people. Jamie Mellum, the jockey there, who actually has got she's got a history of some very serious injuries, is the first ever female jockey to win a Caulfield Cup, Jack.
She is.
And my mate Paul's got 10% of about, I think it's 3 million, might be 4, was the first prize money. And half yours is now, Jack, the favourite to win the Melbourne Cup, depending on where you look. It's either 5-1 equal favourite or a 4-1 favourite, depending on where you go. It was purchased by his current owners in November last year for $305,000, initially purchased for $500,000 by its former owners. $305,000. I should have looked, but it's now on about $5 million. It's won 2 Group 2s, including the Caulfield Cup, and doing very, very nicely for its connections. Well done to everyone involved there, including Tony McAvoy and his son Calvin, the trainers, who've done a wonderful job getting this horse up. It's got an explosive burst of speed, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, and it got into the Caulfield Cup pretty well at the weights. So at those weights, it was.
Well, it's going to suffer a penalty, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's got 2 kilos for
got
the
an extra
Melbourne
2 kilos on it,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's run the 2 miles, but that doesn't seem to matter too much. I mean, some horses you can discard because they haven't run the 2 miles. This is a horse that just bobs up and then's got an explosive turn of speed, whether it's 3,200 metres or 26. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. Now, the scratching of Sedelius, Jack, all a bit controversial, but in the end, wasn't a board of vets, independent, provided the advice, because some of the training connections with Gay Waterhouse were saying it's cherry ripe. We're moving it up to New South Wales and going to give it a run. And
it's nominated for Saturday in Sydney.
Is it? But the vets have said it shouldn't start, and everyone's trying to ring
Gay
Waterhouse, and she won't say anything.
The vets have ruled it out of the Cox Plate and the Melbourne Cup because they're races where the clubs and Racing Victoria retain the right to scan the horses. This is because they've had a problem with international horses breaking down and being put down in the Melbourne Cup. Not so much in the Cox Plate.
Interesting.
So the withdrawal from the stewards really only affects those two and all racing in Victoria. So they've nominated him at least.
So they're saying the Cox Plate's more grueling. How old is Sedelius? Is it a 4-year-old?
Yeah, it's a 5-year-old.
5-year-old. So it's going to be running pretty much pretty much with the same weight in its back to most of the field. But you do have that narrow turn, that uphill straight at the Moonee Valley.
For the ownership, they're never. It had a good weight in the Melbourne Cup. They're never going to get into the Melbourne Cup with that weight again. So you can see why they're disappointed, right?
All right. Now you've got a little headline here: the Hong Kong horse. What's that?
Yeah, Kaying Rising won the Everest on Saturday.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it's a huge deal here because we've only had a couple of horses who've gone overseas and really made a success of it.
Must be like living in New Zealand over there, eh?
And he's
look at us.
And he's the this one's the real deal. So not at his best, and he still won easily. And one of the they bet $1.50 here because we're in the World Pool with Australia, but it was $2 plus on the Australian bookmakers. And as
I noticed they had around 45,000 at Randwick on the weekend. 50, just on 50.
Yeah.
And
seriously,
Caulfield's only 25. But who takes the headlines? Is it the Caulfield Cup winner or the Everest? I got the impression that it was Caulfield Cup.
No, the Everest is easily the second biggest race in the country. Yeah. It's the second biggest race in the country.
In terms of media coverage, maybe I was looking in, maybe I was carrying a bit of a bias, but I just thought there was a bit more coverage of the Caulfield Cup than the Everest this year.
Yeah, no, it's the Everest is absolutely the real deal. It's huge.
All righty, well, that brings us to the end of episode 131. We want to thank you for listening. I did receive a bit of stuff from some of our listeners, so we'll whack that into next week's show. I want to thank you for listening, and I want to thank you too, Hong Kong Jack, for your contributions today. And we look forward to bring it all back to next week. See you, folks.